Whenever I come to a place of learning, I'm always reminded by the words of a great man who said that the battles of Trafalgar, the future battles of Trafalgar are not going to be won in the waters of the Atlantic, but in the dormitories and fields of Eton. I mean, see, that is the importance of education. I think this Lord Nelson said, it remains a fact that Churchill was a student of Eton. I think Eton or Harrow, whatever, and he is the man who really led England to the war, to the victory in the Second World War. And he said that Hitler would have won, but for the fact that he never studied geography. And he never knew that Russia has a winter. He actually said it. You know, the importance of education cannot be overemphasized. Now, you know, my life, my profession, my passion are equity markets. Right? And to be very frank, I have two interests in life, and not in the wrong sense, markets and women. And both are considered four-letter words. Markets with risk and women with love. And both are interconnected because markets are very much like women. Sir John Templeton said markets are like women, always commanding, always mistress, always uncertain. Always volatile, always exciting. And you know, if you can figure out markets, you learn how to figure out women better. If you can figure out women, you'll be able to figure out markets better. Right? Because both are driven by human psychology, only the psychology is very odd. And anyway, thanks for the kind words and the warm welcome. But you know, it's when I get these words and all these kind of that I feel I should be most alert. Because the worst of the mistakes are made in the best of the times. Never forget that. You know, I made a presentation where I tried to cover a large number of points. One is the history of markets. One is India's economic growth and its equity markets. One is the inevitability of India's economic growth. Then Indian equity markets in the long run. Asset allocation and compounding, investment approach, exiting from an investment, my life and career, and whatever the advice I would like to do. So, in the history of market, what I find is that a lot of people you know, discuss markets. Some are very excited by markets, some are very contemptuous. But nobody really wants to understand what is the purpose of these markets. Why are the stock markets existing? Are they needed? Can a country do without them? So why did the markets exist at all? Why did they start? See, just prior to the Industrial Revolution, when there was no large international trade, you know, you were basically an agrarian society. There was no need for large capital. But when just before the Industrial Revolution, during and after the Industrial Revolution, there arose the need for large capital, which cannot be provided by single people or single families. Thus was born the idea of the joint stock family, or the joint stock company. Now the people, you all know what are the companies that have limited liability, right? But the people who are owning the shares of the joint stock companies were diverse. They wanted to have a constant ability to sell these shares and have a valuation for these shares. Therefore arose the idea of stock markets and liquidity. So why are stock markets there? They provide capital they transfer capital from owners of capital to people who can use capital, right? In order to provide liquidity and a mechanism by which this can be valued and it can be exited and entered, we had the stock markets. So the stock markets have not come because somebody wanted to create a gambling den, as many people think, right? They have a very big purpose because they transfer capital from users of capital, from owners of capital to users of capital, right? What are these capitals? Capital market, they are the temples of capital allocation, right? And do you understand the importance of capital allocation? Do you know why communism failed? I personally think that as a form of government, communism is a very, very good form. But why did it fail? Because the state allocated capital. And the allocation of capital by the state led to its inefficient use. While in capitalism, it is the markets which allocate capital. Why did Russia fail? Russia was apparently So see, Russia, why did communism fail? Because the state allocated capital. And that allocation of capital led to inefficient use. Look at the steel industry in Russia, it all closed down. The moment the communism was out. So, but it is the stock markets and the markets which allocate capital in capitalist societies. Although there might be some aberration, it's not the end of capitalism, right? Why do you think of Mr. Narottam Seksaria? In 1987, he had 500,000 tons of cement. ACC maybe 15-20 million tons. But by 2002-03, Gujarat Ambuja became one of the top 2 producers of cement in this country. Why? Because he could use capital efficiently. And because he could use capital efficiently, the market gave him far more capital than other companies could raise. So they are the temples of capital allocation. They channelize capital into most productive assets, right? How do you get risk capital? Where are you going to get risk capital? You may be able to get debt. Where are you going to get equity for any project? Right? Whether you do it in an unlisted company, listed company. Most unlisted companies are also funded with the idea that exit will be through listed companies. So for the growth of risk capital, which is the key for the growth of any society, the channels are the equity markets. Could have Mr. Ambani been what he is without the equity markets? Sir Jamshedji Tata would not have put Tata Steel, the 1 million plant in 1900 without the use of public money. So it's very vital. You know, most of the industry in India has been given birth through the use of public capital. And that capital has been accessed through the stock markets, right? Then of course it's a barometer of economic environment. The finance minister is always discussing that is the Sensex more greater than his opinion. But the fact remains that for a lot of people, the stock market movements is a barometer of the economic performance of a country, although it may not necessarily be so, right? And finally, it is a way where, you know, savings can be transferred from owners of capital to users of capital. So therefore, don't think that it's a gambling den or something needed, not needed. Mummy will say, daddy will say it's not a good place. Whether good or not good, it is needed. One of the reasons why America had this kind of growth was its cutting edge capital markets, right? Although there have been some problems after that, but it's not the end of the story. So I hope I've been able to explain the purpose of markets. Now, you know, people say I'm called a bull everywhere, although I'm not necessarily a bull, sometimes I'm also a bear. Only by size people call me bull, right? So, but what I feel is, when I want to talk of Indian equity markets, I want to first talk about Indian economic growth. So a lot of people tell me, why are you talking about economic growth? We're interested in the equity markets. But I want to explain that all valuations are a slave of earnings. What I want to say is that the valuation of any stock ultimately depends on the earnings of the company, right? After that, and earnings are a function of economic growth. It is a recorded fact of economic history that the profit growth of the corporate sector in a country is between 1 to 1.5 times nominal GDP growth. Nominal GDP growth is the GDP growth plus the rate of inflation, right? So if I say that India is going to have 9% GDP growth and 6% inflation, so you have 15% nominal GDP growth. Now, the corporate sector's profit growth is going to be 1 to 1.5 times. Generally, it's 1.2, maybe 1.1, 1.3. So that means what? That if India is going to have 15% nominal GDP growth for the next 5 to 10 years, profit growth in India for the corporate sector will be between 17 to 18% on an average. Some years it could be 12, some years it could be 25. So therefore, a longer term bull market in India is dependent on the growth in corporate earnings. The growth in corporate earnings is dependent on nominal GDP growth. So therefore, before I talk of the long bull market in India, I want to talk about India's economic growth. Because I went to a lot of places and students tell me, sir, why are you giving us a lecture on India's economic growth? We are concerned with the equity markets. So I think it's my duty to explain first the relevance of India's economic growth to India's equity markets. Just as I said, the bull market in equities present and future is a direct derivative of India's economic growth. Right? Now I use the word inevitability of India's economic growth. I am an opinionated character. I had an opinion in 1985 that come what may be, I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I go and invest money in the stock market. So my father said, where is the money that you will invest? Right? But I was an opinionated character. I thought stock market will do well. I went there. I am an opinionated character. I think India's growth is inevitable. We have just seen the trailer. The picture is actually going to start. And why do I feel it is inevitable? I know some of you all must have been students of chemistry. At least you have done. I've been a very bad chemistry student, right? But the fact is that there is a chemistry which leads to an outcome, a combination of factors, right? Now there is a combination of factors in India. I think some are products of history, some are cultural, most are irreversible, which gives me the feeling that India's economic growth is inevitable. Right, and I mean much higher growth than what we have. Not the 5%, 6%, 7%, but 10%. Why do I feel so? I feel why? Well, India is basically a society of tolerance. See, it was this tolerance which brought the Mughal emperors into India. But what is the modern world about? The modern world is about the ability to anticipate change, accept it, prepare for it, and benefit from it. And rigid minds cannot accept change. If I am taught at home that this is the only truth, don't believe anything else, right? Or you are brought up in a very, confined cultural fact, your mind will never accept change. But because basically Hindutva and Hindu religion is the most tolerant and open, we accept change. That's why we're very good at mathematics and science. In the modern world, societies which are not, if Saudi Arabia cannot accept change, Saudi Arabia cannot grow. It's a fact. If, Burma can't accept change, Burma can't grow. So I think it is the culture of tolerance which is very, very important for India's place in the modern world, right? Then we have skill sets. I don't know how to say how skillful Indians are, and surely it does not only belong to the Indians, to the Mittals and the Nyogis, it belongs to every Indian. And I can give you an anecdote that diabetes is the most researched disease. Why? Because the rich get it, they can afford the drugs. The medicines have to be taken every day. And India is the diabetes center of the world. And it's a lifestyle disease everywhere, right? What they have found is that Indians are most diabetic prone. So they did research. They said, is it got to do with diet? Is it got to do with location? But a company did research where any place where the Indian population was more than 0.5%, worldwide they did research, they found Indians are most prone. So they said Indians are genetically prone to diabetes. So if Indians can be so successful worldwide, the skill sets only cannot be of the non-residents. So Indians are genetically prone to skills. It's a fact. It's an analogy at all. Right? And look at our doctors, look at our lawyers. Right? Where is the skill set which is not available? Look at our professors. What is the skill set which is not available in India? How the whole API industry, I don't know, I can understand the API industry, the raw material for manufacturing tablets. How it started in India? Because 1967 or 66, Government of India passed an order that Glaxo or any other multinational company has to manufacture the API in India. So they made a plant in India. That was the end of it. Now India is the leading manufacturer of APIs in the world. Indians saw the plant, they transplanted it. They now make it cheaper than the foreigners. Why? We have made the atomic bomb. We have not chosen the technology from anybody. We have not sold it to anybody. It's all indigenous Indian technology. We are now launching space satellites for Israel. Because we do it at 5% of the cost that NASA wants. So there are so many demonstrations of Indian skill sets, right? I mean, I can go on and on and on. So we are a tolerant skill society. Then we are an entrepreneurial society. Only an Indian entrepreneur can put up something like Flame, come to a place from nowhere, right? In the middle of nowhere, and then now dream of creating an educational institution. And Indian entrepreneurial skills, we are among the best entrepreneurs in the world. Billionaires row in London contains only Indians. And we have proved ourselves not only, and see, we have a history and culture of entrepreneurship, right? Then democracy. This is something people don't like. but I like very much. Because it is what slows us down, but it is what keeps us together. Right? And if you see the list of the 15 richest countries in the world, excluding Singapore and Hong Kong, they're all city-states. They don't matter to me. Right? They are all democratic. They don't matter for a... They're like Pune, yaar. I mean, in that importance, finally, if in relevance of India, what is the relevance? Right? We have to take everything in its own, in its own perspective. So therefore, if you see the top 15 nations, those who have had prosperity for the last 50 years, 100 years, they have one quality, they are all democratic. And I think why democracy is, see, we don't like democracy, it's like not liking the husband you have. What about the alternative? So dictatorship, anything can happen. You'll have crony capitalism, the state would be sold. The politicians manage to sell it in democracy. Suppose you have 100% power, I don't know what they'll do. And I think Indian democracy is now maturing. There is big concern. Mrs. Gandhi wants National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. Help the rural poor. Why? Because they want the votes. So you want to help the poor because you want their votes. See the power of democracy. And India has got deeply ingrained democracy. For the last 21 years, we have no single party in power in parliament. But all the institutions of democracy, whether it is the army, whether it is the Reserve Bank, whether it is the Company Auditor General, whether it is the judiciary, everything is working independently, and change of government is absolutely as per law. And see, we must understand one thing, that democracy has also evolved in every nation. If I give you anecdotes of what happened in America, you won't sleep at night. Yeah, because in India also the democracy has to evolve. I think the democracy is extremely important, because we don't know if there was no democracy. I don't know if Sanjay Gandhi had become the absolute dictator of this nation, what would have done? Nobody knows. Right? Then we have demographics. See, I think this is extremely important. Every society goes through a demographic evolution. Right? And you've heard of the baby boomers in America. Now, America went through its most prosperous phase because it was in the most favorable demographic phase during those 25 years. Right? And every society goes through this evolution. And for the next 40 years, India is going to have the most favorable demographic profile of any substantial nation in the world. And this cannot be reversed. And China is going to lose it fast because China enforced 1 children. We tried 2, I don't know if we succeeded or not. Right? But the fact remains that this demographics is extremely, extremely favorable. And all societies have had the greatest prosperity when they have gone through this phase. And this can't be reversed. Even if people start having more children or less children now, the effect is going to come 40 years later, not next. So the next 2-3 decades is fixed. Right? Then you have a savings rate. It's very peculiar, you must learn. That when you are poor, you save more. The poor save more than the rich. And empirical evidence shows that where there is no banking and no loans are available and no social security, saving is the highest. And where loans are possible, so social security is there, people spend far more. But in initial stages of growth and development, any society needs savings rate. Because what is growth? Growth is how much you invest and at what rate of return you get from that investment. And how will you invest if you don't save? And India has huge savings. I think this year should be 3,50,000 crores. Of course, government eats away some part of that saving by its deficits. Right? So we have a culture of tolerance, skill sets, entrepreneurship, democracy, demographic, savings rate. Right? In the initial stages of growth, the savings rate is extremely important. And then I come to orderly evolution. We are all impatient. Most Indians are dissatisfied with India. What is this? Road is not made. Airport is not good. Right? Electricity is going. But sir, look at Singapore. Look at America. But sir, America has 250 years of of 230, 40 years of democracy, 230, 40 years of free growth, of pro-government. And America did not jump from a per capita GDP of $5 to $5,000 in 10 years, right? So everything has to evolve. Singapore doesn't matter, sir. Singapore doesn't have a hinterland as big as Pune. I'm not joking. If you want to tell me make Bombay prosperous, I can make it in 3 years. But what about the people who live outside Bombay? Right? So let's not compare ourselves to the nation. So what grows and survives perfectly is what evolves. And India is evolving. And according to me, it's evolving in an orderly manner. I think look at the way our democracy is maturing. The chief ministers who are doing good work are getting re-elected. Right? So I think, this orderly evolution, where at every stage of growth we are setting a faster pace. And we are doing it in a rate of growth which is not, in a manner which is not satisfactory, but according to me most sustainable. And then of course you'll have the takeoff. Only the problem is that the runway is like Bombay Airport. We don't know when the clearance will take. Right? So now, we have a confluence of reforms. See, they are acting and reacting on each other. If I do reform in telecom, it helps all the other areas. If I develop other infrastructure, it helps all. So these reforms act and react on each other. At the same time, the country is finding size, is finding its own feeling of confidence, right? It is being recognized internationally. The urgency is getting reinforced day by day. And therefore, finally, Bombay Airport will give runway clearance. I think we will be on the way to sustained double-digit growth. And I see no reason why post 2012-13 or post whatever expiry of this international crisis, right? Whatever form it takes, India should not grow double-digit. So I think this is the reason why I'm talking all this, that India economic growth, according to me, is going to be 8, 9, 10% until the end of the economic crisis worldwide. And then we are surely going to have double-digit growth. So if we have 10% or 9% nominal GDP growth, 5 to 6% inflation, with 15%, nominal GDP, right? I don't see any reason why corporate profit should not grow 17 to 18%. So I'm talking of India's inevitability because I want that 9% growth figure. I want to be confident of that figure. I don't want that 9 become 3, then 3 becomes 6. And I see no reason why it should in India. And I've tried to order out the reasons why I feel it is inevitable. I can't predict the time. Nimish bhai is already looking at his watch. Right? And why I say, one is you have the profit growth. Then what about the money? Who will buy? I was very bullish on public sector stocks. So the NDT fellows to ask me, but FIs don't buy, who will buy? I said, don't worry, if the girl is pretty, the suitor will come. Right? So, if India is going to have 15% growth, nominal GDP growth, right, you have a modernized trading system with dematerialization, and we have done dematerialization the fastest in the world. And I think today we settle our trades faster than the New York Stock Exchange. And we have done it in the last 5-6 years, right? We have corporate governance through market sword. Of course, in bull market, there is no corporate governance. Because corporate misgovernance is the product of bull markets. Because it's in bull markets when you lose all your senses and greed overwhelms you, right? We have effective regulatory environment. Just read the SEBI law. Once you read it, you'll stop trading all your life. We have insurance now which is blossoming, and we have inevitability of FI investments. Where will they invest? Where growth is 2%, right, and rate of interest is 1%, or they will invest where growth is 12%, or 9%, return on equity is 17%, 16%, right? So the question is not whether they will invest. The question is only how much, right? And I think it's inevitable. It's a course. They have to invest. And they have become emerging markets, we have become developed markets. Because they have current account deficits. Yeah, it's a fact. They are now having socialist societies. because the state is controlling everything, right? So if you are going to have 15 to 20% corporate profit growth, you have effective regulatory environment, modernized trading system, huge savings. As far up till now, we are a tax paradise. We don't know after the tax code. No capital gains, short-term 15%, dividend tax-free. I have a friend in Dubai. I asked him, "You pay any tax?" He asked me, "What is that?" I don't know. So until now in the stock market, we can say that. But I don't know whether we will do it in future or not. Then the question is, why will money not flow into equity markets? See, this is the distribution of savings coming into equity market. This is RBI data, right? And post 2011 is my prediction. Now about 17% of Indian savings in 1991 came to equity markets, and it became 1.1% in FY05. It's RBI data, it's not my data. Only FY11 is my prediction. And if it goes back to 15% by FY11, what kind of money can you see in equity markets? See, this I made a chart, fund flow for equity markets. It's a complicated chart, but you are all MBA students. So better learn in life, also lead life, better learn to handle complications. So you know how it is explained that you have a gross GDP. You have a savings which goes up every year. Say nominal GDP goes up 13-14%. Then savings rate. That saving rates is going up every year because of demographic reasons. Because of that, the quantum of savings is going up. Then the quantum of savings coming to financial sector is going up because of education, because of availability, because of communication, right? Then the percentage of financial sector savings coming into the stock market is going up. So here also the flow of money to equity markets is inevitable. Nimish Bhai was telling me in the way that Indian mutual fund, Indian insurance companies are going to invest $20 billion in an equity this year. And that is one side Ganga. It only comes, it doesn't go back. So if India is going to grow at 14-15%, Nimish Bhai, therefore it's my prediction that by 2011, $45 billion of local money should come into the market. And 2009-10, my prediction is 34 billion, right? It could be 4 billion, 5 billion, less or more, if you have going to have nominal GDP growth, right, which is for 15%, 13%, 14%. You have good trading systems. You have a blossoming financial services industry. You have inevitability of FI investment. You have huge money waiting to come in. Then why will the market not go up? This, in the short and long of it, is my bull case. A lot of people ask me, you are bullish. I don't know much. I'm not a professor of economics. I'm Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, share bazaar, road shop. Leo phatapat, deo phatapat. Right? Because I do trade also. Because no father gives, no father-in-law gives. How do I get the money to invest? So you have to trade, earn it, then invest it. No? Right? So this is in the crux, my bull case for India. And I have put my money where my mouth is. 100% of my assets, I would say 99.9%, 100% of my savings in life are in Indian equity. Right? That's my belief. I don't buy any land, right? And I don't have any investment in any jewelry. So that's my bull case. Okay.